Okay, hi everybody, this is Christopher Rozruch, as I'm going to call myself here, and it is currently the 10th of February. This is in Czech, we've got it here. It's Saturday, sobota, 10. únor. And what I want to look at, I'm just recording something from the screen here. This is VLC Media Player. Okay, everything's in Czech here, but you can go to Media, Open Device, and with that we can record the screen. I had to do a little bit of geeking around to find out how to do that. For the technical among you, you can't do it on Wayland, you have to use X, and so I've changed to fire up my desktop in X instead of Wayland. But essentially what I want to look at is the website that I'm putting together here, that I've been working on for a while, and currently for no money at all I do have here, let's see, I don't know if Patreon is or should be my my favorite form of donation, but I do have here a rather outdated kind of Patreon site, which again, it's just, I have not yet got word out yet about Marginalie that I'm putting together, and so I haven't actually yet really put my name out there or made any great attempts to have anybody donate to me. But here is how you can do it. So Rozruch on Patreon, and currently you could find my my girlfriend, who has kind of been sponsoring me for some time, you know. So, but back to the actual website itself. I was initially hoping to do some videos where I could record myself talking. In actual fact, I think this is probably the better way to do it, but also I don't really have a good enough way to record video at the moment. So I bought an iPod Touch, having heard that the iPhone is the easiest way certainly to record video. I later found out two things. One, which was that it was very irritating to actually work with files from iOS, and the other thing was that actually, although a lot of people say that the iPod Touch is essentially an iPhone without the phone, it's really not, and the video isn't very good, and the microphone isn't up to scratch either for that. So rather than actually trying to expand that by microphones and the rest, I think I'm going to do it this way for a little while in any case. What you should be seeing then is the screen that you will get initially when you go to marginálie.eu. I chose the EU part of the domain really because part of this is about my own identity as a European and even a citizen of the European Union. I was born in Great Britain in 1978, which means that I was born as a European citizen from that time. I was born to Irish parents, and recently I have, or in fact even before the referendum went to my mind for the wrong way, I applied for an Irish passport and with it Irish citizenship, and I now am an Irish citizen, and I don't currently have a British passport. So that's why you have the EU there. It's also a reflection of the fact that had it been, I could easily have chosen CZ, and I could simply also try to register that and forward it on or whatever else. The reason I didn't was because actually this is the other problem here. Just as the politics in Great Britain are kind of, to my mind, going the wrong way in a very illiberal direction, in America the same is true, but also in the Czech Republic right now it's really at a very dangerous time for democracy. I hope to be able to talk about that at some point in terms of book reviews, books by Eric Tabery, who is the editor-in-chief of Respect over here, and a few others I would like to look into, especially with regard to biographies of Andrzej Barbash, the current Prime Minister. But here what you see is, I'm not happy with it right now. This is the front page, and it is designed to try to look like a typewritten page, and it is designed essentially to look specifically like a samizdat page. I talk elsewhere. I'll just scroll down to see these, by the way. So I've got everything here. These are links, and I try to make it look like it's essentially been that a highlighter pen has been used for these. Elsewhere, I talk about what each of these colors is for. Green is essentially for internal links. Yellow for external links. I do also have a kind of faded highlighter to make it a little less kind of in your face and a little bit less cluttered. Currently, first drafts, and here you'll see this is 0.1.1, which means that really it's not that great a draft, it's just thrown out there as an immediate reaction to, in this instance, the presidential election here. The presidential election went on last month. It's just actually a couple of weeks back now, and it feels like a lot longer ago, and really progressive voices here in the Czech Republic are very worried that democracy is on the way out, and that's too much to go into here. Currently, it may be that by the time you click onto the website, it won't. Sorry, I'll move that back. So that's where you would be clicking. But it may be that it doesn't look like this anymore. The reason being, the geeks among you will understand that the website is built on a Git repository, which means that I can kind of change all of the pages and update them all at once. And this is the most recent commit, one of these, writing onto Route 97. And we'll look at this in a little while, but in any case what it means is that I can change the whole website, of course, and I will be updating this because this is really an essay on current affairs in the Czech Republic, and it doesn't really belong on the front page. What does belong, I guess, on the front page is when you go down, and so here you've got, for example, the project about page. This is also rubbish, and you've got here kind of it was written on the 9th of the 1st of this year, and here again you see version 0.1.0. Once you see the first number, it's kind of like a software project. Once you see the first number here going up to 1, then you can actually start to believe that it's a reasonable draft. What I've been doing recently is just writing it initially directly into the computer, and then here I guess there's about here. This is the page, and you can see there are various versions that I've done of this page. I guess this is what it looks like now. This is HTML, which is what you typically look at when you're looking at the internet. It's a HTML file, which is kind of just a way. Let's go down to where it's a little bit easier to understand. BR, start to finish like that, is just a line break, and I guess that if we went back to, that's the beginning. This is one BR. It's a line break. Then the next one here is another line break. Nope. Back to here, and then so we can see that actually I've got here del, and going back we can see that the first section here is actually deleted, as if you went back over it and typed with a hyphen on a typewriter. So again, I'm trying to do it as if it were like a typewriter, where you can keep on writing but you can't really delete stuff, and so occasionally you see this, you know, on these first edits. But in any case, so then normally I write into the computer. So del, that's the end of the del section. That's the delete section. It means it's got this strike through, so it looks like it's kind of deleted, but you can also see that it has been deleted. and then P to the end of P here. It's closed with this sign here. That is essentially a paragraph. And so then it's formatted accordingly when your computer and when your browser starts to do it, and it's formatted like this. So here we can actually see that a paragraph starts with an indent. In any case, so then when I actually write it into the computer, I actually write it like this. Alright, so I go into a kind of an editor and I write it not into Microsoft Word, which I don't use in any case, but I use a kind of, I guess, I don't know if I could find, so if I go Vim, I don't usually use Vim, but it kind of looks like this, right? And then you type, for example, you don't because you're not in insert mode. And that's kind of how I tend to write stuff, but we don't want to do that right now. All right, that's how I do it. But actually, when this version creeps up at the top, what I'll probably be doing, this one will be a kind of minor version change. This one, I don't know how you, I can't remember the terminology for all of these, but essentially this one is what I'll start on, then it will be 0.1.1 as the index page currently is, and when it really ticks over is when it goes to version 1 from version 0. And the change that I want to, what I want to indicate with that, in a software program, that indicates a break in backwards compatibility. It means that, for example, a document you saved in Microsoft Word version, I don't know, 3.0, or sorry, 2.9, cannot be read natively, or vice versa. One saved in version 3.0 cannot be read in Microsoft Word version 2.9. That's why years ago you used to get this kind of, I don't know, an ultra compatible version of Word document. It would sometimes ask you if you wanted to save a Word document that could be compatible with older versions of Word, and that's why. In this website, which is conceptualized as something like a punk zine and something like Samizdat, then I'm going to change this when I move either from a computer to do a draft on a typewriter, or when I go the other way around. So from longhand also to computer and things like that. When I actually change, and that means that I can't just copy and paste, because it's one way of editing, but actually, with me at least, it doesn't always necessarily improve things as much as it could, whereas moving from one version to another, where I have to actually rewrite and choose the words myself to copy and paste in that sense, will make more of a change. This is the About page. I was trying to simplify it down, but actually I went on a bit of a tangent, and probably if you read this in 2 months, this won't be here. I'm going to try and really get to the root of things and to make this a little bit more simple. What I actually did here was just talk a lot about music, and though I love music, I haven't loved music enough over the last few years, and that's not necessarily the basis of what Marginalie is, though I described as a punk scene. But I'm talking about what I'm trying to avoid actually here in this About, and that is as valid a means of discussing the zine as anything else. But it's not merely about not being swayed too much by the algorithms that are created to control essentially us, and which are not helping us to join together in some progressive movement, or even to improve ourselves, or to discover things, or to enjoy life. These are not what these algorithms do. But nevertheless, that's what the About page currently is. I'm not happy with it. So what I'm going to show you in this route through today, this quick whistle stop tour, is that really I'm doing this in my own time while I'm trying to write a novel, and though I kind of think that this zine is one of the kind of things that we need, and though I'm very driven to working on it because I fear that we're falling into a kind of hell of social media echo chambers, and kind of, you know, if we look at this, one of these people has kind of blocked me. I'm not sure why. I haven't actually, I don't think, addressed either of them. But what I think we can find when we look at computing right now is this. And sexism is a feature, racism is a feature, classicism is a feature, transphobia is a feature, ableism is a feature, and all of these other things here is a feature of the technological systems that we are designing right now. So, to go back, if we look at here, the context is another kind of page where I'm trying to describe, really. And this is, again, we've gone to version 0.1.1, so it's still a very early version, again from the 9th of the 1st, where I guess I did a lot of work at that time. Essentially, I'm working on all of these pieces, really, when I'm not able to work on the novel, which we will look at in a brief moment, I hope. And I remember that after Christmas, if you can imagine, Christmas is very difficult for somebody who's writing a novel, because you have to really be living that novel and living that world. And Christmas was an inevitable break, and I had illness as well and things like that. So essentially, I put all the technical sides of this project together during a period of illness prior to Christmas, and then did a lot of the writing for it when I was really unable to focus on anything else. So actually writing these pieces was a way of trying to moderate and minimize the anxiety I feel when I am really living within a fictional world and unable to develop it. And so I put these together, and really they're kind of thrown together quite quickly. Nevertheless, this one I'm a little bit more happy with than some of the others that I can show you. There are far too many kind of links out, but part of the reason for that is because I guess this is a very personal take on what we're looking at. I'm talking about the cultural references of the opening ceremony of the London Olympics in 2012, and I will briefly look at that because actually I saw on Twitter the other day when somebody was looking back absolutely incredulous that Britain has changed so much since that period of real. It was a vibrant mood actually in that time, and it was a very positive mood in that time, and Britain felt still like a very open and positive place, and it felt like there was a lot less prejudice. Now I moved back to to the Czech Republic in 2013, and the Czech Republic I kind of fell in love with many years ago, but the Czech Republic is funny because actually it's a very closed and a very homogeneous, and it's really not a cosmopolitan place. So that's kind of funny moving from Britain to here, even though I moved from Wales back to the Czech Republic. But looking back at Britain, the Britain I would like to try to remember is the very positive and open and cosmopolitan form of British society, which I occasionally knew and rubbed up against, rather than the rampant consumerism of London and its frankly ugly kind of aggressively, I don't know, priapic buildings and all of these nonsensical shards, and I don't know, I don't really appreciate that side of London. But there are sides of Britain I do really like, and it's difficult to look back here from, I guess I don't feel British anymore. And in one important sense, I'm almost not British anymore. If I get to my kind of, I guess here to my profile, I guess, I list myself as Plastic Paddy of the Universe. So that's in part because kind of a plastic paddy is one who is born typically in Britain, who considers themselves Irish. Now, I would like to feel more Irish, but I was born in Britain. So, and I clearly speak in the way that I do. It's partly because I'm autistic and kind of have a strange, rather formal prosody, and it's also because I've taught English for long enough here that I guess I have had to neutralize what accent I had. It's a kind of combination of those things. Nevertheless, I sound, I guess, more middle class than I would typically describe myself as. And I certainly wouldn't be described as somebody who is Irish in that sense. But a plastic paddy then in that case is kind of a self-ironizing description of myself and of the universe. Well, there's a band here from the dissident days of normalization in the Czech Republic that is called Plastic People of the Universe. So this is a play on several things. It's being British, being Irish, being Czech, but also in that sense of this real dissident tradition of Czechoslovakia rather than the Czech Republic, actually, which is again another element here. And also just this idea of being almost a citizen of nowhere, as Theresa May calls it, is encapsulated here in the sense that I am Plastic Paddy of the universe. So I am a human citizen of Earth, essentially, but also one who has a focus on science, I guess, and a scientific ways of understanding the world, which is separate, and this goes against some of the ideas of Richard Dawkins. That kind of goes against describing yourself by a national identity, and so therefore I am a citizen of the world. The reason I came upon this at the time was I was a kind of Montessori teacher, and there's a big element of the cosmic curriculum, which is kind of overdone to a certain degree there, but nevertheless. Alright, so this, in any case, this page context is about the context in terms of where we are with the internet and surveillance, both surveillance capitalism and kind of the surveillance state, which I will put up some videos at some point of people talking about, I think it was Thomas Drake who said that, or William Binney, in fact, it was William Binney, I believe. No, it was one of those two. Two whistleblowers who had formerly essentially worked for the surveillance apparatus, who say that we are in the absolute peak of state surveillance, and the Stasi could not have imagined. They were both speaking in Berlin a couple of years back, and they said the Stasi could not imagine having the power that is had by the intelligence services in this day, and nobody discusses this at all. In any case then, so Marginalie's various influences, I can really do with looking at the formatting here a little bit. I had previously called this the About page, and this was written, as we see, on the 11th of the 12th of the 17, last year in December, possibly then when I was ill, when I first put this kind of website together, and this is, again, it's a very early draft, so we can see that all of the drafts right now as I'm talking in this video are very basic, and there's a lot of problems, like, for example, it's all one page, and I want to sort that out, and ideally I would like to try to build the whole website around a Python web framework like Flask or possibly Django, though I am kind of edging towards Flask for the geeks among you, and indeed anybody who would like to collaborate on that and like to see something like it. Now here I talk in rather more technical and kind of conceptual terms about what I see Marginalie as being, and I talk about samizdat, I talk about, for example, punk zines, which I never really saw, but I've heard a lot about, and it's funny how kind of a concept that you've simply heard, it doesn't matter whether you're born just out of the kind of the great, I guess, cultural thoroughfares, and you just don't come across things like this, or whether you're born in Czechoslovakia, just hearing about what is happening in the West and having really piecing together from a concept that you've put together which is very idiosyncratic simply because you don't have access to the circles where people are really putting together these ideas and concepts, and so you make it for yourself, having just heard a few ideas of what it is. And essentially I guess that's what I've done with punk zines. I saw one or two, and I talk about a few of the things that I think it might represent in terms of Spitting Image, a kind of satirical program from back in the day. I read a little bit about it from John Savage and Grail Marcus when I was a kid, and kind of, you know, compared it to Dada, the art movement, and so on. Now, Samizdat as well, I know a little bit more about. I have a Samizdat kind of Bohumil Harabal here, and I will talk about that. I haven't read this for months, and it's possible that it's in the worst possible state, but that's the kind of thing, is that it's not been my primary focus, really, I guess, Marginalie, and if it were to be so, I guess I would need to see a few more people making some donations here, because at the moment I'm not earning any money right now at all. And so back to this. I'm talking about Milan Kundera and a few others. So here, I'm sure that this is a really difficult... this is not the best of drafts. I would like to redraft it. But again, if you listen to what is actually necessary to do it, you realize that I've got to rewrite all of this into a typewriter and then back again to actually make a more coherent draft of it. Now, of course, people forget, because everybody just throws out writing into the world, and when you're going to try and put together writing that will actually make a difference, and most of the writing we come across does not, I guess, is what I'm really arguing right now, then you realize how much time needs to go into it. And maybe for me, maybe I'm not as talented as I could be, and it takes me more time and more drafts and the like, because I have a very idiosyncratic mind. But then to actually express the results of that idiosyncratic mind, it takes a certain process, and you need to start earning money from it. And now I would like to do this and put this together in the most open way, where everything is on a kind of Creative Commons license. Scroll down again, and this is all about Creative Commons, and if you don't know what it is, then try to read this page or look up kind of Creative Commons. Just throw it into a search engine and the like, you know. But I would love to do everything in this very open kind of Creative Commons style, that anybody then can share the writing that I put out there. But for that I will need some either subscribers. I don't have a subscriber system yet, or some people who can donate. I thought about doing Bitcoin. That was originally, when I was putting this whole project together, I was thinking of doing some having a Bitcoin donate page. But I'm seeing really the kind of ecological impact of Bitcoin, and I'm seeing the direction it's going, and I haven't yet done that. I would like to put up more ideas of how people could contribute to the project financially, and different alternative ways to do that. The difficulty is that so many of them, like PayPal, are really working against the open society, and I'm not certain that actually Bitcoin isn't doing the same. I will look into that, I hope, if I have time. It's all about time. Let's look at the wiki. Alright, so the wiki is currently just myself. So I'm there as Rozruch, and you can look at my user page, and I will say really what I'm trying to work on. And the last session plan I had was back to 17th of January 2018. But I have kind of recent efforts, what I've been doing recently. Current priority, continue, history is on the make. Alright, so you've got the wiki, which I'm going to be hopefully inviting more people to recently. I've got a friend who is looking into helping me out with some of the technical aspects. Each of the technical aspects, just as I can kind of geek up how to do screen captures. I hope this is still going, by the way. I've not got a time on here in any case. Just as I am able to work out how to do screen captures, so then I can go onto these strange corners of the internet, like all of these other people who run Linux and bizarre operating systems on their computers, and are famous for 15 people on the internet talking about some peculiar technical aspect of Linux or the like. I can work out these things, but again, it's a question of time. I'm not earning any money, and so I can't do all of this together. It's a very ambitious project. It can do a lot. But in any case, what is it for? Well, here it's for kind of helping others to try to use the internet for similar purposes, to put their own kind of punk zines together essentially on the internet, to create these communitarian spaces on the internet, rather than using these kind of more, corporate forms of pseudo communities. So it's about doing that. Random page again, issue 0. This is what I want to put together. So this one, all of this takes a lot of time, and really, if you look at quality journalism and quality writing, it takes a lot of time to put together. I would like to do a review of, or apparently I've linked to that already, though I didn't think I'd included it in, oh no, okay. So Democracy in Europe. Alright, so this is another piece on a book that was published in 2000. Now, the thing is that Democracy in Europe goes back prior to 9/11, and that really, we can see that 9/11 changed all of our thinking in so many ways, and it really made us, well, illiberal, essentially, and it's worked the whole world over. So doing a review of this book by somebody who was appointed commander of the Order of the British Empire, interesting wording there, of course, in 2004, so just before we had the referendum on our continued membership of the European Union. So I really want to look into this, and in the wiki, once I've got more people here, it's not initially going to be an open wiki, but I would like to have a selected people, a community of people who could contribute to it initially, and they can help to put some ideas together for this. But actually, I would simply like to write a review of that, which would touch on Brexit and involve a comparison with America. And he makes some really interesting points in Democracy in Europe, which I would really like to kind of look into. I would like to do a review of Zloty Baron and Boss Babiš, which is about an oligarch, an agricultural magnate here in the Czech Republic who owns 2 newspapers, was involved with the communist kind of security services prior to 1989, and is currently the Prime Minister and the Kingmaker, essentially, along with Miloš Zeman. And so how does the Czech Republic's populist Prime Minister compare to the populist leaders of Hungary and Poland? And what does the current state of politics in the Czech Republic mean for the European Union? This could be quite big. I've got here May 2017, and I've not kind of linked to this, and an attempt to describe the year Rozruch has had. I might get rid of this in the first issue. I would like to have more from other people in this first issue, but the story of painting, I'll probably get rid of that. The story of a photograph, so here we look at, this is the photograph, and this again is actually Andrzej Barbash. You can see here it's actually on Flickr. Now Flickr used to be a wonderful, wonderful kind of tool on what was a more open internet. Right now it really is not, even though I can kind of go and put a Creative Commons license on it. I would like to move this, along with everything else, to a gallery within. This is actually the open source software, or rather the wiki is running on the open source software WediaMiki, and I would Media Wiki, sorry, and I would like to put these photographs there. What he's saying is it's a shock for me. I can't guess at all. I have no idea what it is, and so far as I know, nobody is paying in Bitcoin. So this is a story of a photograph taken with my Olympus Trip old film camera, and really it's a story of kind of a couple of years ago and my thinking on Bitcoin and the progress of this man. And really, I guess the Czech Republic's kind of slide from being a rather boring democracy in terms of how the West has viewed it in the last few years. Typically, in the last few years, if you had an article at all about the Czech Republic, it would somehow reference Václav Havel, which was the last point that anybody understood what was going on in the West. So that's about that. But again, we're on version 0.1.0. I have attention deficit disorder, and what this means sometimes is that in an initial edit, I kind of expand a little bit and get mission creep. And that has happened, I think, here. And I tend to run out of steam towards the end. And I have a lot of kind of footnotes and stuff here. It's not overly long, but I think I will be expanding this a little bit yet. And I would like to go back on that and do so. Right now, the problem is that I don't know. Okay, is anybody going to want to look at Marginalie? Is anybody going to want to kind of work on this wiki? I've got a couple of people. So I've got a couple of people who are interested in doing tech support on it. I've got people who are interested in doing some, for example, illustration support on it. And that's all great. Here, in every issue, so this again is about issue 0. 0 because it's a kind of pilot. So 0, you won't, for example, have the Flask web framework. There won't be a lot of other things that are working on the website, but you'll have the basics of seeing what it is. Here is an extract from On Liberty by J.S. Mill of the liberty of thought and discussion, and this is kind of like it's essentially it's kind of, it overlaps with Creative Commons because this is public domain, and so you'll be able to read about well, you can read anywhere else, of course, as well. But you know, putting in a magazine, I think is putting in a zine is, I think that's worthwhile, because otherwise, you know, you can go, of course, to Project Gutenberg and find a lot of public domain texts, but there's a lot of stuff to pick through. So sometimes it's good to flag up these things and kind of include it there. And it kind of says a little bit about the purpose of the magazine, because really we have absolutely moved away from this. I mean, if you look at even the front page, the time, let's look at this even, you know, reading this in 2018, really. The time, it is to be hoped, is gone by when any defence would be necessary of the liberty of the press as one of the securities against corrupt or tyrannical government. I'm sure that if I found, if I go to home here, alright, so let's see what's going on. If we start scrolling down here, it won't be very long before we come across something relating to relating to the Sega Mega Drive. Relating to the talk against, I guess, the free press, either from Trump or from in the Czech Republic, even in Britain. Alright, we're not going to scroll down through all of it, and there's a lot of random stuff on here. I follow a lot of random people, and this is a kind of a backup. Yeah, let's not even do that. Well, let's not even do that. But back to this then. So an extract from On Liberty by J.S. Mill, back again. Later on, I would like to put The Man Who Planted Trees by Jean Giono, which was, from its outset, he actually gifted it to the world, and it was a public domain from the very beginning, and it's a beautiful story. This is about kind of a play on one of the translations of the title of an essay by Leo Tolstoy, blah, 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 okay, in which the duties of the engaged citizen are discussed with regard to a criticism of Bohumil Hrabal offered at the time the Czech Republic sleepwalked through the corrosion of its democratic institutions. Alright, well, yeah, right now it's a bunch of notes. Prewriting it's called, meaning that it's just really a bunch of notes. And I guess a legitimate question right now would be, well, why are you putting your notes up on the internet? And the reason for that is that actually it helps me really to focus on it. I do have ADHD, I have a problem with finishing things, and the thing is that if I start putting stuff up and then people read it and it's in an unfinished state, then it kind of gives me a real sense of urgency that I can start to work on. And if people start to look at this and like, yeah, that was interesting, but, or what the hell was that about? And if that starts to come back to me regularly, then I'm sure I will really prioritize these kind of things. And but at the moment, God, I wouldn't sit down and read this. And if I did that now, I would be absolutely, I would almost feel sick with how terrible it is. All right, a lot about Hrabal in here. And this, called A Deadline, aside from the epigraph, which is great, this is, wow, this is real pre-writing. And in fact, if I go to pre-writing here, it's up in pink, and pink is for a link to the wiki. Now, the first draft is a model of layered digressions best thought of as pre-writing. That word again, it's not proper writing, it's not even a draft. I rushed through it in order to return to the novel, aghast at what it was accelerating away from me, even as I did so. There is something here, but the story involves a lot of different places and mind states, the knowledge of which cannot be assumed by the reader, essentially, is what I'm saying. But the epigraph is great because it's from Tony Harrison. How you became a poet's a mystery. Where did you get your talent from? I say I had two uncles, Joe and Harry. One was a stammerer, the other dumb. That'll make sense with the context of Tony Harrison's poetry. It's about class, and this subtitled kind of Be Advised, My Passport's Burgundy, which again will make sense when you read some of it, I hope. But I've got sometimes here like footnotes, which I also put that you can just hover over and find them. But yeah, I was going back to Prague for a holiday, and it was around 2006, and then I realised that my passport was out, which was no great surprise because I have ADHD, and at the time I was really not coping with this. I didn't know anything about kind of nutritional therapy. I didn't know anything about how to really moderate those symptoms. And later on, essentially, this is about a story of my dad helped me to pay for a renewal at the time, and of the passport, for a 10-year passport, a British passport. My parents have helped me out a lot over the previous years. I've been basically marginal. This is where the title comes from, essentially. I have been marginal, and a lot of people I know have been marginal for various reasons. If you're different, you are marginal. I've been economically marginal as well, and that's what Thatcherism, which is what we've been living with for the last 30 years, basically as I've grown up. That's what Thatcherism is. It makes people who are different marginal and then excludes them completely. And you can be marginal if you are a thinker. This is why there's sometimes a problem, because the intelligentsia were absolutely kind of oppressed and repressed under communism and other totalitarian regimes, but actually something similar, I would suggest, does happen under Thatcherism, because once you start thinking, you question the system, and the system doesn't work for you, and then you are marginal. For whatever reason it is that you think differently than the others, then you will be economically marginal as a result. This has got very complicated indeed, this essay, because it goes into then identity. It goes into not only what has happened to me over the last 10 years of that kind of passport. I recently renewed it, not with a British passport, but with an Irish passport, and it's about what led me to do that over the last 10 years, what I have done with my own writing, because essentially my father, when he helped me to renew that passport, told me, look, I hope you'll be published in 10 years' time. It's getting on for 11 years now. I'm not published, aside from, well, this is published, essentially, so you can be published and you can be absolutely marginal as a result because nobody's reading you. But it is essentially published. And that is one that will take a lot of work, and then again we've got the notes on the first draft. But whether I'm saving the best to last or not, there's a couple of other things here. You can look at it on the wiki. It may change, the edit may have changed by the time you look at it, and the list of things that I would like to do may have changed by the time you look at it. But if you go to fiction, Call Them Soldiers, an introduction. Alright. Call Them Soldiers. Let's go to the Wiki page. Is a fictional work in progress by Christopher Rozruch, aka Rob Ward, editor of Marginalie. It was first conceived in 2007 to 8 when he was watching what he thought to be the effect of Facebook on a complicated community. Blah, blah, blah. It came alive again in 2017 with the fallout from Brexit and the US presidential election of 2016. It is set in Manchester with a narrative frame in a Choctaw settlement in the Yukon. This is the most difficult aspect of it, I guess, is because for me, and this will come up, I guess, in a future issue, is what right do I have to actually think about and try to write the fictional world of the Choctaw Nation. And that's a very complicated subject which I've wrestled with a lot, really a hell of a lot over the last few months. And somewhere here buried I have a kind of the beginnings of an essay and looking into that. It's called Failing Better, I think. And I would like to look at that. Nevertheless, in this narrative introduction, I have taken on kind of the myth of America, and I've taken on the myth of America through the Choctaw Nation, and we're looking at a kind of road trip from let's go so we're in the Yukon essentially. So it looks absolutely beautiful here. Right now it looks beautiful, and you know, for me, I'm a bit of a hippie. I would like it to remain that way. And where are we going? We're going to Portland, Oregon. Alright. So we're looking at this kind of, this is the road trip we're looking at. And you know, I've never been to any of these places, right? So I'm looking at this map every day. And it's a novel. The trouble is, the novel is looking at kind of a world from midway through this century, a world which possibly no longer exists. Oh my god, perhaps I have this route and now I'm going, I don't know, I can't remember which route I'm going. I'm going down kind of, I've gotten going to Whitehorse certainly, and then I guess, where are we looking at? I've gotten going down Route 97. And so I'm kind of, as I go, making up, oh dear, they're going down Route 37, it could be. That's interesting. I might prefer that. My god. Imagine, every time something changes, and your whole fictional world changes, because right now I've got them around Muncher Lake, but they could be going down this way on Route 37. Okay. Oh my god. Alright, this is the thing, it takes so much time and effort and energy. You know, I was really kind of in a state of high anxiety a couple of days ago because I was between sections and scenes, and right now I am kind of writing every piece on the typewriter and then writing it into the computer, because actually the way I then interact with the world is slightly different. I guess if you're looking at here, there is a big pipeline that they're thinking of building between here, Vancouver, and I think it certainly goes through Kamloops. And yeah, so it goes through Vancouver, up to Kamloops, and round to Edmonton, taking a route along a couple of rivers on the way, I guess. And we go very easily on Canada, and on Justin, what's he called? Trudeau. But actually, it's not so much better. In any case, the I have it that we've had a lot of nuclear explosions around this area, certainly, and we have some guys from Oklahoma, the Choctaw Nation, who have had to have a second Trail of Tears all the way up here, a huge trail, yeah, and that's where I'm at now. How realistic is all of this? Well, I don't know, but it's a novel, and where am I? So I'm here. This is actually, if we look forward, it's an ASCII doc file, not a HTML file. So actually, if you were to look at this elsewhere, you might see something very different. Let's see if I can bring it up. Nope. Google Chrome. Let's do that. Alright. And I have installed ASCII Doctor, so I can read this here, and it will look like this. But it doesn't always look like that. You know, if you don't have ASCII Doctor installed as a plugin or extension in your browser, then you won't see it in that way. My computer slowed down because I'm recording. I'm running a lot of stuff at the moment, and as you may know, we have had a lot of kind of big computer bugs recently, and processors have for many years relied upon things which are really not secure, and there are a few kind of ways of trying to avoid that more recently, but it involves slowing down the process and slowing down many of those kind of those supposed upgrades. So in any case, it's loading now, it's slowing down a little bit. Maybe I've hung the whole computer. Alright, so here we can see what it looks like. It looks like this if you don't have ASCII Doctor installed, and it gives kind of some details here that you can kind of how you can do it. In any case, I guess what I'm saying is that this is the novel I'm working on right now, and so you will see it on the website, and you also, if you click through to issue 0, this is in GitLab where I have my Git repository, which I told you about earlier on, and go to histories on the make and forward ASCII Doc. Forward is not the correct word for it anymore, really. It was originally supposed to be just a short introduction, but it became a story all of itself. So here you have the ASCII Doc file, which I've been changing, and you can see the different versions of it. If you go to where? History. So you can see here there's a lot of different sections going back, I don't know, to add pre-writing forward, blah blah blah, reboot histories on the make, blah blah blah, and these are all the different names of the different, they're called commits that I make. Second typewritten section, Jerry talks about the signpost graveyard. First typewritten section from Watson Lake, let's go there. And it's kind of not important, but there you go to forward. No? And this is what I changed, right? So a few things here are a little bit different, I guess. The green is what I added, the red is what I removed. So this is how I wrote on. In any case, then, that is an introduction. I'm going to go and check now that this is still recording and it's all kind of working and whatever else. But what I will do is put this on, I guess. Let's just go back to the main page. I'll probably put this initially. In fact, what I might do is just rewrite all of this and just put this somewhere else. This should be a blog post or something else. There's not currently a blog right now, but I can kind of get rid of it in any case, and not have essentially an essay about the Czech election as the first piece that you will see when you look at Marginalie, because that doesn't make sense very much. And I will get rid of all that and just maybe add a link to probably a torrent for this video. I guess I'm feeling that kind of YouTube is really not an open way of having videos and hosting them, so I'm probably going to have kind of like I've got here, there are some kind of video podcasts, there are lots of, there's audio podcasts as well, most of them very poor quality, but I'll add something up here for this latest kind of screencast and see if you can't kind of make sense a little bit of what I'm doing here. Later videos I'll try to keep shorter. I guess there's a lot going on with Marginalie to actually understand what it is. I'll try and break that down into smaller pieces at some point, but for this one then, the first on, what did we say it is, the 10th of February 2018. I guess that's plenty enough for now. Please feel free to do feel free to donate if you like what I'm doing, and to let me know. Either it can be through Brakavarna on Twitter. I was trying not to use it, but I have been using it again. You can write to me on krozruch@pocketa.cz, but you will find certainly, I'm sure, the email address and so on here. Let me know what you're thinking, and let me know if you want to help in any way. And that's all for now. Thank you.